Welcome to the Silicon Slopes podcast. Today we're joined by Kent Hansen, who's the CEO of Code Corp. How are you?
Great. Great to be here today.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. And we'll just call it Code from now on.
Okay.
But tell us about Code. What do you guys do?
Excellent. Well, Code is a company that we create and develop barcode readers. Been in business since the late 1990s, and so we've been around for a little over 20 years.
Very cool. So a lot goes into that in the modern world, right? And we were talking beforehand, and I wonder who invented the barcode. But it's 30, 40, 50 years old kind of technology.
Yeah. The barcode was actually invented in 1948.
Okay.
So way back when by two guys in a university, but really they didn't start using the barcode until the mid-'70s. Just the technology wasn't around to actually read a barcode.
Okay. And the whole purpose of it is streamlining logistics and optimizing processes and gathering data, right?
Yep. So if you think about it, really a barcode is a graphical representation of data. So you bury a bunch of data into some sort of graphic, and there are over couple hundred different types of barcodes. So not all barcodes are created equal.
Okay. And this could be a pack of gum all the way to like medical equipment.
Yep.
And everything.
So if you start looking around, just about anything around has a barcode on it. The traditional barcodes that you see kind of every day or every week when you go to the grocery store, we call a UPC code. It's a type of a barcode. And, obviously that's how you scan them and get your groceries. But they are on everything from, like you say, everyday items in the grocery store to medical devices where we focus, and we can talk a little more about that. But even down to every single part in your car has a barcode through the manufacturing process. And those type of barcodes aren't the traditional what you see on a printed label. They're actually imprinted into metal parts. It's a DPM is what we call it, mark, and then you have to develop products to actually read those marks.
Okay. So it's probably a little bit more complex than what most people interact with. But the barcodes in the car, so somebody has to think through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
How is this going to be read? How do we imprint it? And then what's the purpose and final result, right? So talk about some of your products, because you have several that
right.
do a bunch of different things, and how they are a part of the business and interact with people throughout the world.
Sure. So you can break down kind of barcode technology into two main pieces. The first is the software, which we call decoding software. It's actually the software that once it's presented an image, it will decode what is on that barcode and then spit out, so to speak, or output the data in that barcode. And so that is kind of at the ground level, the key of a barcode reader is the software. And then you have all sorts of different hardware form factors that fit around that software. The traditional ones you see, again, most people kind of see and recognize are in a grocery store, which are fixed mount. You slide a device by. If you go into a lot of restaurants now or whatever, you see a handheld barcode reader. And so those are two kind of the basic form factors of actually barcode reading.
Okay. So I got my daughter for Christmas a little point of sale thing with a cash register and a little barcode reader. So she presses and it just goes beep. And that's it, right? So the magic is what happens after, right? That's where the value is for, I assume, your customers and your clients and the people that pay you for your services.
Exactly.
In a lot of instances, that'd be a ton of data, right? So how is that data used, and how does it improve people's businesses and processes?
Right. So some of the basic parts is actually of the reason barcodes are there for inventorying. So if you imagine a Amazon warehouse, massive, has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions of different pieces in there. Each one of those pieces or box has a barcode on it. So when they come into the warehouse, They scan that into some sort of software inventory system, and it will tell you how many pieces of inventory you have and actually where it's located within the warehouse. And then when they ship out an order, they now know the location. A lot of times it's robots that will go and grab that box off the shelf and pack it up and ship it out, and then it decrements. So that's some of the basic items, and that's really where the first barcodes were invented, was around the inventory side of things, and then it has definitely grown from there.
Yeah, I would assume it was somebody in a warehouse or a big supermarket, and they were getting frustrated by not knowing, right? Pain points. And okay, so with prospective customers, why are they reaching out to you? Is it because they don't have systems in place, or they're not happy with their current provider? How does the customer acquisition go for you guys?
Yeah, right now we have two main customers, and first, kind of worldwide. In the U.S., our probably 75% of our products that we sell is in the healthcare industry. So hopefully you haven't been in a hospital lately, but if you have been, you'll probably recognize as soon as you get into a hospital, they put a wristband on you, and that wristband has a barcode, and that's what they track you with. Anything that happens while you're in that hospital gets logged into what they refer to as an EMR, a medical electronic medical record. So every time your wristband is scanned, it brings up your record. When you are given medicine, they scan the medicine, it logs it into your system that you've been given that medicine. If you're giving, even down to blood or any procedure, even in the operating room, when they're putting an artificial hip into your knee, there's a barcode on there that they scan, and it actually just electronically puts it into this electronic medical record, rather than having in the olden days they'd have to write all these notes. Then you can never read a doctor's handwriting anyway. So. Right.
Yeah, so then they can prove that they actually put the hip in.
Exactly.
And you got medicated and all of that. All right, and then
most importantly for the hospital, not most importantly, but they also like to get paid.
Yeah.
So every procedure, everything that happens gets scanned in there, and then that's how they turn that into your bill at the end and work through insurance companies, etc.
Yeah. You hope it's not the most important thing, but it seems like it is a lot of the times. All right, so with the all the various software and hardware, how much of that do you guys kind of develop through research and development, or do you partner with other vendors? How does that work for you guys?
99% of what we do is in-house. We use a few contractors as more just kind of overflow when we need more resources. But we're, we own it from soup to nuts. So we have a development group that does that core decoding software located in Boston. So we've got our key development group out in Boston. And then our hardware development here in the Salt Lake area.
Okay. And so, again, you already mentioned most people are familiar with the scanners and the beeps and all of that. But I did see on your website there's glasses.
Yeah. Glasses. So, as I say, the traditional barcode reader are these handheld devices that you read a barcode, and it can go into healthcare, as I mentioned. In Europe, kind of our biggest market share piece in Europe is around industrial and manufacturing. So we're in a lot of the manufacturing plants, the Volkswagen plant, the BMW plants, those type of things, where, again, as they're manufacturing that. That's kind of the traditional. The bigger trend, and the new trend is actually we license that decoding software into other applications. So if you think about it, when you go to an airport and you're getting ready to go on a plane, you either have a paper ticket or you have your cell phone and you put it down on a device, it reads that barcode. So that is someone else's hardware, but that is our software that's running that decoding. So when we talk specifically about these smart glasses, we've been working with a company that have actually developed smart glasses that will bring up some augmented reality for workers and those kind of things, so they can bring up instructions or diagrams while they're working. But at the same time, they need the ability to actually scan some barcodes without using their hands that might be on a device, and that will bring up potentially, some instruction sheets or some diagrams.
Wow.
And so into these glasses, they've built a little barcode reader, and they're using our decoding software to actually read that barcode and then translate it back into their cloud application that brings up the whatever is being asked through that barcode.
Wow. That's very cool. And is it like voice activated? Did you blink? How does it scan?
It's kind of a point shoot, and there's some voice activation as well. So, you look at it, read that barcode, and it's smart enough to know that instead of, if you're moving your head around, there's a bunch of barcodes, then things get crazy on it. So pretty cool technologies out there. So
yeah.
So that's the other side of our business, is that we actually license that decoding software in many different applications, like I mentioned, in travel and in kiosks, to some automated check-in devices at hospitals, not hospitals, but doctor's office and labs. If you've been to a lab, they have you electronically log in.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of different applications that are just pretty cool out there.
Yeah. So it's a ever-evolving market, right?
Right.
And you guys are pretty much vertically integrated, as you mentioned. You're able to stay abreast of what's coming down the chute. What are some of the kind of future markets and or opportunities that you guys see, and how are you going to activate those?
Yeah. So especially, this was a trend that was coming on before COVID, but COVID really sped it up, is what they refer to as contactless checkout. So when you're in a store, with the viruses, you don't want to touch anything. So there are more and more stores in the U.S. You've probably heard about the Amazon stores, where you'll actually walk into a store and there won't be a salesperson in there, but you log in with your cell phone, again with a barcode. You walk around and put stuff into your basket and scan that, and then as you go out the door, you pay with your phone. So this whole mobility contactless checking is a very new trend. It's actually, Europe is actually ahead of the U.S. right now. I would say that that there are many major stores in Europe that have gone to this type of checkout, where it's self-checkout. But you can, here in the U.S., there's lots of opportunities as well. I don't know if you've ever been to Sam's Club and use the Sam's app. You walk around the store, you scan right onto your phone, as you put it into your cart, and as you're walking out the door, you say pay, and there's someone at the door that scans your phone to prove that you've paid. And so that's really one of the big trends, is moving it from a traditional handled version of a barcode reader to now putting it on your cell phone. This is also a kind of a trend that's happening within the hospitals. Traditionally, it's always been kind of handheld devices, but a lot of hospitals are now moving to outfitting their nurses with iPhones or even iPads, and they're licensing our decoder onto those devices to do their scanning.
Wow. So you guys will be busy.
Yes. Never ending.
Awesome. All right. So as CEO of a company like this, there's hardware and software, and it gets technical, and then there's sales and product development. Where do you focus your time, and what do you enjoy the most?
I'm a technologist at heart. I am not an engineer by trade, but I've been in the technology, industry here in Utah since the early 90s. And this will probably date me, but it started out with dial-up modems. So I worked for a company called Megahertz, which was born and raised here, and we did dial-up modems. And so I enjoy being involved in enough understanding what the technology is and helping to guide some of those product roadmaps and strategic roadmaps to make sure we're developing the right products. A typical product development of a new product or technology is anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So you got to be looking out into the future and seeing what's coming down the road so that you can be there. So At a kind of high level, I stay in touch with what's going on from our kind of product roadmap and technology to kind of keep my finger on the pulse and make sure that we're going in the right direction. But I also enjoy going out and talking to customers and understanding really what their needs are and what they need to help them to improve their business processes and to improve their business. And when we can find kind of that intersection of what we can do to help that customer improve their business, then it's a win-win for everyone if we can be there to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And recently, others found value in the business that you guys have built and are running. And so you guys were recently acquired, correct?
That is correct.
Brady Corporation?
Brady Corporation out of Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah. So I know a lot of folks are going to find interest in this. And I read the press release and stuff, and it's got the numbers in there and why Brady thought it was good. But in as much detail as you can or want, how does that process go? Because that's part of being the CEO, right?
Yeah.
Selling stuff or maybe selling the company. And how did that go?
You know, it's been interesting. Code has been a successful, let's call it a small business for 20 years. And I would say, you know, multiple times a year we have people come knocking on the door interested in acquiring us. And we had, you know, a small ownership, you know, stockholders and a board. And we weren't really interested in being bought. But as a, you know, fiduciary on a board, you have to take some of these things serious.
Yeah.
Some of the things, companies that have come knocking in the past are, you know, looking to buy a company for a penny on a dollar, or they're interested in one particular piece of technology, and you can kind of see that they would just come in and let everyone go, but buy the technology and incorporate it. And our shareholders and our board were not interested in that type of arrangement. They were very concerned about keeping it going as a viable company and protecting the employees, because that's our success, is everyone's hard work in building this up. So back in December, Brady reached out to our board and said, "Hey, we're interested in buying you." And the first answer was, "We're not for sale."
Right.
But fiduciary responsibility, we'll take a look at it. And so they sent over an offer, and the first reaction was, "Well, that's not quite as much. If we're going to sell, that's not quite as much as we were looking for." And to make a long story short, they came back with a really nice offer. And as we looked at Brady, we realized that they were a company looking to add us as a whole into their product line. They specialize in industrial printers, and they needed to fill out their solution. Most of their printing is they're printing barcodes to put on everything.
Yeah.
And they needed to come in with a full package of, not only can we print these barcodes for you, but we can also provide the scanning and the software that goes along that. So as we kind of started going back and forth on the negotiation, we saw that this was kind of like a peanut butter and jelly, if you're a jelly guy, or peanut butter and honey person, is that very little overlap, no channel conflict, no really product conflict. And so as we got further and further into it, it made sense, especially with they guaranteed that the company was going to keep running and doing what it's doing, but they were also going to provide additional resources so we could speed up our product development.
Yeah, so very strategic in the acquisition, and you avoided kind of the trimming and sales and cutting gray hairs that sometimes happens with that. And so did this involve bankers? Like, what was your role in the negotiation? Were you relying on others, the board? How did that work?
the most of the heavy negotiation to kind of come up and shape the deal happened at the board level. I was kind of consulted and asked questions. But once they kind of came to had an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that's when the heavy lifting started. So especially in the technology industry and in the barcode industry, there's a lot of legal patent work that goes on to protect our patents. We have, as a small company, we have about 140 patents. And so that's when the heavy lifting started, is through this due diligence process. And that's where myself and my executive team really got involved to just dive through, and lots of discussions with attorneys on both sides and crawling through, all sorts of patents and ramifications of patents and those type of things was the kind of the heavy lifting. And we both agreed that if this was going to happen, we wanted to make this happen fairly quick, because as a small company or any company, this turns into a huge distraction, and our main goal was to keep focused on our business. So we put out a pretty aggressive goal to actually close this deal. We started kind of at the end of December, in the first part of January, and probably got to an MOU part in March, and then set the goal to try to get through all the due diligence and close this sometime in late May or early June. And part of that reasoning is Brady's fiscal year ends July 31st, and so they get tied up into the into the whole fiscal end year. So we burned a lot of midnight oil, and everyone stepped up, attorneys from our side and a lot of attorneys from their side, and just worked through all the due diligence to actually make it happen. And we closed, I think it was June 14th or so, mid-June sometime. So
yeah. So it was fast, but it was still like 5-6 months.
Yeah, and in a transaction that's, like we said in public, $173 million. That's, I think, fairly quick to make things happen.
Yeah, and at some point, maybe you're halfway through and you're fairly bullish on it. They're not adversaries, right? But you're not on the same team quite yet.
Yeah.
But then just like that, once it's finalized and done, you're on the same team. That's kind of got to be fun, and also a little bit weird.
Yes. So we tried to keep the circle of people that knew what was going on fairly tight, really tight. It was just my executive team. With Brady being a publicly traded company, they just couldn't afford to get information out on the market, which comes into a whole bunch of security issues. And so we got to the point where we closed, if I remember, I was like a Wednesday night. On the Tuesday before we closed, we told everyone we were having a company meeting, and then had a company meeting Thursday morning, and then announced this, and had the president of Brady and a couple other people come out as we announced this. And so it took a lot of people a little bit by surprise. But as we described, the reasoning and the strategic reasons for this, and why this is so good for code, everyone was really excited about it. So we went through all that, hard work of due diligence to close. Now we're in that period of transitioning and doing some integration work.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we all need to continue to run a company and keep focused on that. So you got kind of two jobs. But Brady's been a really good partner. They're really conscientious in making sure that they don't overwhelm us and keep us focused on what we're doing, so that it turns into a win-win. But there's obviously getting integrated into a larger company. There's just some of the back-end tactics of mundane stuff like emails and servers and all that kind of stuff. So that's still going on, but the exciting part is, and with a small company, trying to balance being profitable and being aggressive on product development.
Yeah.
One of the great benefits now we have as being a part of a larger company is they have more resources. And so our main goal now is to actually pick up the velocity of our product development and releasing products. And so we've got a lot of exciting things going on, and we're we're actually trying to hire some people. So if anyone's out there or wants to be part of a growing, exciting company, we're looking for a lot of engineers. I think right now we have about 14 positions open for engineers, software and hardware, mechanical engineers. So
yeah, awesome. No, it sounds like a good time to join. And I think it's uniformly agreed that that's the worst part of an acquisition, right? It's like, hey, can you send over that Google Doc? Oh, sorry, we use Excel. Or like all those just horrible, small, nitpicky things. But it works its way through.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're actually a Microsoft house, and they're a Google house, so we're going through those pain transitions. So
yeah, I appreciate your time.
You bet.
Really cool story, and I'm now a lot more informed on all the barcodes, and I really appreciate you taking the time and joining. And best of luck with this acquisition and getting it all ironed out.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to come in and talk and be able to tell our story.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.